Aged 40, I was terrified. Terrified of leaving my children without a parent. I had been orphaned aged 8 and knew the pain and loneliness of growing up without a family or anyone who truly loved or wanted me. And yet I desperately wanted to travel, explore new cultures, learn about the world. But how could I leave my 3 young children? Equally, I couldn't ignore the push of my multi-ethnic heritage driving me out of my suburban life, nor the pull of the injustices around the world that I wanted to be part of making right. So I'm here today to really tell you about my ABC blueprint of how to conquer fear and transform your life. A, authenticity and being honest with yourself. Being honest about what you want and then being even more honest about what is holding you back from achieving what you want is, for me, the most important and crucial first step. So being honest with yourself is one of the most scary things to do for so many reasons. Well, firstly, because it invites disappointment. What if that inner dream never happens? Now I've acknowledged what it is, what I want. How will I cope if it never materializes? Well, secondly, how silly do my hopes and fears sound even to me? And how much more silly would they sound to other people? And no one wants to feel silly. And thirdly, because it will require courage and work to make the dream happen. And do I really have what that takes? All of those reasons are summarized in one 4-letter word, F-E-A-R. Fear stops us from envisaging a better tomorrow. It keeps us stuck in the sludge of our own lives, unable to make the hopes and dreams buried in our heart into a reality. So let's go back to my dream of world exploration, which I had by this stage not only verbalized, but written down on paper as part of the vision for my future life. One day, I was turning the key in the lock of my house when I heard a voice in my head just saying, "Phone that international human rights organization one more time." Well, they told me twice before to go away, but I did phone one more time. "What a coincidence," they said. "Yes, we know we've told you to go away before, but the person we've just given the job to has unexpectedly had to retract her acceptance. Would you like a chat?" Not only did I get the job, but I took it on my conditions, which included working from home and working part-time so I could be there for my children, and also stipulating that I would not be leaving my children to engage with their mission trips. But then, within just a few months of starting the role, I found myself boarding a plane to a lawless part of Southeast Mexico, still crying about leaving my children, convinced they would be left motherless and I would never see them again. I cried every day that week, in fact, but it broke the power that fear held over me. And before long, I was visiting war-torn Iraq, the devastated West Bank, and hidden parts of northeast India, amongst other places. It all started for me, and it can for you also, by being authentic and allowing your hopes and dreams to surface. And also by being very, very honest about why you are afraid to pursue that vision, and then simply take the next step forward. So I've told you about the A of my ABC blueprint to conquer fear, being authentic and really, really honest with yourself. But now going on to B, that's believe and hold on to hope. And now you've been honest and authentic with yourself and verbalized those hopes and fears. You've been brave enough to take the next step. For me, it was making that phone call, but for you, it could be something very different. What happens next? How do you hold on to your hopes and dreams? I'm often told how confident and strong I must be to have overcome the trauma that was my childhood, and how great must be the belief in myself and my own ideas. But truth be told, I don't feel strong or confident. Of course I don't. I was brought up without family, without love, and constantly being made to feel a nuisance and less than all around me. Many of you might know what that is like. I can tell you that if you can just hold on to your vision for long enough, the opportunity will come along to make it a reality. When I first came to this country feeling very alone, having given up the opportunity to go to university, having almost lost hope of ever having a meaningful career, I was given a job to help set up a preventative dental healthcare company. Who would have thought that as I was sitting on the floor in a furniture-less office, that the mad idea of two dentists of changing the provision of dentistry throughout the UK would ever work? But I took hold of their vision. I refused to be cowed by the obstacles. And 7 years later, a £50 million business was successfully providing preventative dental health care across the nation. Many of those leaps forward came by being ready and poised to take hold of opportunities brought about by the external climate the moment they presented themselves. Take the charity I now run, for example. It used to have a vision to serve the local city, which was great. But when I took over, I wanted to not just help people locally with what was and is a unique well-being program, but to help people right across the UK with it. I tried my hardest to make it happen, but without success, and eventually put the nationwide idea on hold. But then a global pandemic came along. It was our big opportunity to grow bigger than Southampton, where we operated. Whilst everyone else in our industry was busy furloughing their staff, closing their doors and hunkering down whilst the plague wore itself out, we went into overdrive. We instantaneously transitioned all our programs online, and before we knew it, we had grown threefold and were rolling our delivery out throughout the Solent and Hampshire regions. We haven't achieved the national dream yet, but whilst we hold on, we know it can be possible. Going back to my ABC blueprint of conquering fear, A being about authenticity and being really honest with yourself. B is about belief and holding on to hope. And C is about commitment. Commitment to moving forward. Push back against that voice in your head that tells you it's not possible, it'll never happen. And why not just jump ship onto the next passing liner? Well, all these voices are driven by fear. And once you allow fear to rule, it opens up the door to all forms of negativity taking over your life. And sometimes it's just about feeling the fear and doing it anyway. I know it's a cliche, but I liken it to the time I somewhat foolishly went hiking in the Andorran mountains in mid-August. There were salt crystals forming around my mouth through dehydration. The rest of the group had long gone on ahead, and I puffed and wheezed my way up the mountain. Normally cold water in the form of a meltwater lake would have me running a mile, but wild horses couldn't have stopped me plunging in whenever we came to one of those meltwater lakes. Such was the need to cool down. Was this sensible behaviour for a newly divorced 55-year-old? Of course not. But pushing through the fear made me realise exactly what I was capable of doing if I could only push through. And of course, the view from the top and the feeling of achievement at the end was completely worth it. Pushing through fear can feel like a form of madness or just a complete waste of time. But how will you ever reach the top of that mountain unless you move and force yourself outside of your own often self-imposed comfort zones? Well, let me tell you, it was pretty tough. Well, for me anyway. But I was focused on taking one step and then another until I got there. I also pulled on my learning from when, at an early age, I had to push through fear step by step. It was shortly after my 9th birthday. My parents had disappeared in a hotel fire a year previously. There'd been a year-long inquest, and finally there was a verdict of presumed death. I was finally told that my parents were not coming back for me, my brother, and furthermore, it was unclear where we would be living. I knew that I wasn't very welcome in the house where we were staying, and the weight of responsibility to look after my brother and to make sure that we stayed together was huge. The fear of being separated from him or being sent to a children's home or a home where we could end up being physically or sexually abused struck me forcibly despite my young age. And although emotionally neglected and unwanted where we were, it was preferable to the unknown. I became strong enough for the two of us, or so I thought, and refused to give in to fear of the unknown and did all I needed to do to be accepted and stay in the house we knew. It was a matter of just taking one step at a time and looking at every day, every week for the foothold to take the next step. I kept my eyes open and found an alternative support system in the form of a family who lived around the corner. School was a place that I belonged, and when I was voted as head girl, it signified to me that I was wanted, I belonged, I mattered. And sometimes in our efforts to push through the fear, we have no option but just to take the next step in front of us. But as long as we don't stop, we will keep moving forward. So, in summary, the ABCs of conquering fear to transform your life. A, be authentic. B, keep believing. C, stay committed. Authenticity is having the courage to identify and verbalize those hidden desires and be totally honest about the barriers that you think are stopping you from moving forward. Belief is holding on to hope when all seems lost, poised and ready to take advantage of opportunity when it comes along. And C is about commitment, moving forward one step at a time and not stopping until you get there. Authenticity is scary, but the first step in unearthing our deepest hopes and fears, it involves being honest about what we want and what is holding us back to help us dismantle the bricks in our walls that are stopping us from moving forward. Belief is about envisioning our hopes and holding on to that vision no matter how tempted we are to lose hope. It means having the courage to say no to a lesser way and take the difficult path no matter how tempting the easy way out would be. Commitment is developing a dogged determination to put one foot in front of the other day by day until the opportunity arises to turn our vision into reality. It's not easy, and I have quite a few hidden hopes and lots of fears, but I know that the ABC blueprint has worked for me time and again, and I hope that sharing it with you will help you also to conquer fear and transform your life.